Good afternoon, dear community. So we're talking about climate action today and sustainability. And I'm very proud to present the next generation NFTs on Polkadot for climate action. So the environmental challenge is on the top of the agenda in our 21st century. But we cannot really look at the environmental challenge separately from other issues we're facing today. So you can see here Yuval Noah Harari. Why? Because this is the only philosopher and thinker of our times who introduced all the three challenges of the 21st century, and he tied it up in one concept together. So we're facing, first and foremost, he puts upfront technological disruption. He believes that we can face, due to the digital dictatorship, a phase in our humanity when we will fail to provide solutions to the challenge, when we will face digital dictatorship and lose very basic human rights due to that. And that would be the first trigger that then will possibly enable nuclear war and ecological collapse. And you all read Twitter and newspapers nowadays, doesn't sound too unrealistic and utopian, unfortunately. So in this context, values and business models sustained by decentralized Web 2 are being challenged by the promises of decentralized Web 3. We've heard about this during the conference many times, but let's refresh our memory. So decentralized web fundamentals are censorship-prone. They lack transparency and accountability. They perpetuate unsustainable economic models. And they don't enable us to spread wealth equally. And data and human rights became commodities. And on the other side, what we're building altogether is an ecosystem and is a Web3 community. We want to build platforms that are censorship-resistant, that are transparent and accountable, that are flexible for deploying new economic models, where we can use the wealth spread mechanism, and we can use data that is human rights oriented. And most importantly, it is open source. So these solutions already exist, and I believe we are at the point where we just need to scale up. So the scope of the problem, what are we talking here about? The relation between global challenges and Web3. The thing is that the essence of the 21st century economy is so-called token economy. But it has had a financial orientation in the understanding of the mainstream, to the point where crypto assets are normally termed as cryptocurrencies. And the financial perspective only grew bigger during the DeFi summer 2020. But here's the thing, that token economy is much bigger than just the financial system. We also have non-fungible tokens. But I will speak later about this. So the token economy. Thanks to its decentralized and programmable functionalities, the token economy is about building democratic power relationships. But the first version of token economy was built on proof-of-work blockchains, which are energy intensive. And high energy intensive models that are fueled with hydrocarbons, they become greenhouse gas emissions, in other words, polluters. So the key question here is, if we want to solve an environmental challenge, but we're also facing technological disruption that can go either in a good direction or in a bad direction, are we doomed to fail, or can we solve this? So to build a benchmark, you've probably seen how mass media, newspapers were talking about blockchain polluting the world, producing CO2, how crypto industry is an evil that we need to ban Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera. But let's benchmark this with our financial legacy systems. So we know that CO2 of crypto, but we don't really know the pollution that comes from traditional legacy financial system. And I've done a little bit of research. So when we look at the carbon footprints and electrical energy consumption, many companies only report transactions. If we look at the example of Visa, they only count electricity production and carbon footprint when somebody swipes the card. So we don't really know what is going on, how the company pollutes itself, how the processes of the company pollute, what is the footprint of employees, of the buildings of the company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and a larger infrastructure of financial transactions. But we all know in the Web3 community that financial system is opaque. We won't really find a lot of information, and I found 3 cases here. So British banks report that they finance 805, they finance projects across their portfolio that supposedly offset CO2. And that produces 805 tons of CO2 a year, which is a contradiction. So emissions for the project and companies backed by the City of London are nearly double those that the whole UK produces as a country. And again, there is no data because they only report 50% of the projects they finance and 25% of all of the transactions they make. The other studies show that banks, or public information, that banks produce 700 times more emissions from loans than from their offices. But again, the emissions are not reported accurately and the data is not transparent. There is not really an exact number of information how much financial system produces in CO2. However, BBVA, that was an aha moment in the research, reports that they became carbon neutral by 2020. So they say that the bank offsets a little bit more than 120,000 tons of CO2 during the year through 7 projects developed in different countries across its footprint. But I wonder, how many banks are there in the world? And how many of them report their data accurately? So if we confront the 2 industries and the pollution that the Web2 produces and the services, financial services, and actually all other services that use Web2 infrastructure, we may be surprised of the difference and the pollution the so-called pollution that Web3 industry produces may be well, overestimated. But let's go back to our challenge. The global warming, if you really want to reach the goal that the global warming was discussed since 1950s, right? And in 1972, it got on the agenda of the United Nations. And ever since then, the problem was discussed at every COP event, every year. So if we really want to go well below 2 degrees to pre-industrial levels, the global carbon emissions need to shrink 10 times faster, experts say. But how do we practically achieve this? So with the conventional proof of work blockchains, we're still fighting the global problem, Web 2 versus Web 3. So this is what the media was saying, that Ethereum, one NFT on Ethereum produces 48 kilograms of CO2. So even though we know we're building the new brave world and the new economy, mainstream may accuse us in not doing so, in actually being polluted. And the whole discourse, the whole argument began with the research and the work of Jean-Yves Mercier, who really takes care of the environmental issues. He was saving electricity in his studio. He made sure that all the processes he runs in his business are sustainable and consume the least amount of energy. And then he got into NFT space on Ethereum and started to mint his NFTs. He minted 5. And he discovered that by minting those 5 NFTs, he erased all the 2 years of effort he made for saving energy in his studio, which was a devastating discovery. So he created an initiative, Crypto Art WTF, where he publishes his research. So if you want to learn more information, there are several very interesting graphs on the website. So in simple words, proof-of-work blockchains are still very, very high energy consuming and produce too much CO2. So to solve this problem, we have proof of stake. We have Polkadot. And by making this improvement, this little improvement, by moving from proof-of-work blockchains to proof of stake, we will reduce energy consumption by 99%. And here is why. In January 2022, Energy Efficiency and Carbon Footprint Institute made a research on proof-of-stake blockchains. And Polkadot is discovered to be the most energy-efficient blockchain out of all proof-of-stake blockchains. Why? Because of its architecture, Polkadot Parachain only needs 5 to 10 validators per parachain, only 30 collators, and for NFTs, we have an optimization process. At Unique Network, we made a calculation, and we discovered that minting one NFT on Unique Network is equal to one person exhaling CO2. So you mint one NFT, you basically produce one human breath. So in the framework of the bigger challenge, what are NFTs? They're non-fungible assets. And they're assets that have a huge potential and long-term future. They have a future where we can only imagine what kind of things can be put in an NFT. It can be turned into a gift card. It can facilitate charity. It can be used for art. It can be used for gaming. It can be used for real-world assets. It can be used for bridging the real world and the digital world to enable building the metaverse. And in order to achieve that, we need to mint hundreds of thousands or millions of NFTs, right? Because we want to digitize everything and then tokenize it to bring it to the new economy, where we can use these NFTs just as we use real-world assets. And we at Unique Network believe that essential NFT tools must be available to every creator out there, because we live in the era of creative economy, and because we're open source, and because we're building democratic power relationships here. So we came up with a unique white label solution, which is a marketplace and a minting solution that is open source and is an out-of-the-box feature that can be deployed in a matter of hours. But there's more. So we began with this initiative, and we pioneered the space on a global level. We ran an art competition, which started in June 2021, as part of our initiative called Digital Art for Climate. The winners of the competition presented their artworks at COP26 in Glasgow in November last year. Now, you can see here beautiful COP26 collection, which consists of 30 artworks, as we had some special prizes, and this was public voting, so it was open, transparent, and accessible to every young person, to every artist, to every creator who cares for the environment, who wants to build his career in the art space, who wants to try out new technology, and who also wants to stand up and express their position in relation to environmental challenge we're facing. So this collection it is today exhibited in Seattle, the first physical permanent NFT museum. And we're very proud of the team that's building it. And now we've built auctions and marketplace. And this whole collection will be auctioned off in June this year. So keep an eye on it. This will be an interesting event. So speaking about this is just the beginning. We started with essential features. We gave the opportunity for people to try what NFTs are, what marketplace is. And who knows, maybe in the future, NFT marketplaces and platforms, they will replace the Web2 portfolio websites of creators. And there is much, much more to come. And because we believe that NFTs are so much more than assets collecting digital dust, we go beyond the essential solution. We've enabled the power of ownership, we've created advanced structures, and we extended art's format. And we are now about to launch a new NFT palette with nested relationships, which will allow NFTs to be the next level. We can see much more experimentation. And it's really up to the teams building on unique network to explore all the use cases. So if you're wondering, as a startup, where to go, there's a blue ocean for doing good. There are many initiatives that need your support in terms of fundraising, in terms of attracting attention, in terms of financing, or in terms of extending the boundaries, creating awareness. There is so much more that we can do in the NFT space. This is it for me. Thank you for your attention.